Okay, here we go with the latest episode of the Miami Vice Daytona Spyder Monogram 1/24 scale build. Okay, here we'll be looking at the chassis and the components which make up the front and rear suspension, as well as the engine. The model is a very simple model. It might be probably a good model for a beginner, as there are not a lot of parts. It's a very simple build. The front suspension is basically one part, which is comprised of the control arms, the steering gear, the spindles, the anti-roll bar, all as one piece. I would have preferred them be separate pieces, as it makes for a more interesting build, but as this is a very simple kit, they molded it all as one piece. And if you want to make an interesting build out of it, it's going to come all down to the paint work and the detailing. As you can see here, I've painted the tie rods a separate color. I've used different variations of metal colors to just bring out the details. We have Tamiya titanium silver and titanium gold, along with Tamiya semi-gloss black for the major components, such as the control arms. And it brings out a lot of the detail that otherwise would be hidden if you did it all in one color. As I said, it's a very simple one-piece front suspension. Attaches easily, and then the wheels just snap on, and then you're pretty much done. There's really not that much to it. As I said, this is a very simple kit. Now we're going to go to the rear. Now the rear, again, is a very simple build that is just two pieces. The rear differential and axles, and the spring assembly. Now my goal with this model is to take a very simple kit and to make it look as detailed as possible, thereby making it look as if it's a much more intense build than it actually is. As you can see here, I've painted the differential and the axles with two different colors. The differential is a mixture of Tamiya metallic paints such as titanium gold, titanium silver, and bronze. No, actually, I'm sorry. I didn't use that. I used Model Masters steel on the differential, which I'm finding that I like this color very much. The Model Master paints are actually pretty good paints. And on top of the steel, then I applied the Tamiya, a dusting of Tamiya gold and Tamiya bronze using the airbrush. I then hand painted the axles in Tamiya titanium silver, and then brought all the details out with the Tamiya panel line paint. And then painted all the bolts with Tamiya titanium gold. All of this helps to bring out all the details in the rear suspension. It makes it look like a multi-piece build when actually it's really just one part. And this is where I find the fun of the model is, of this particular kit, is in making it look like it's more than it actually is. Now, as for the spring assembly, again, just a simple one-piece assembly, which I have painted to look as if it's assembled from many different parts. Bring a little more realism out of it. I've painted the base of the springs here in Tamiya semi-gloss black. The springs themselves are in, again, Model Master silver, dusted with Tamiya titanium gold and bronze. As you can see, I used the titanium gold and the bronze to darken the spring assembly giving it a little bit of shadowing, and the effect that the spring is compressed downward under the plate, holding it. Or at least that's what I'm hoping that the effect looks like. And then I used the Tamiya semi-gloss black for the spring mounts, and then Tamiya flat black for the rubber bushing at the top of the spring. Let's see if we can't give you a closer look at that. Brought that in with flat black for the rubber bushings on each side, and then Tamiya titanium gold for all of the bolts holding the entire assembly together. This gives the appearance of the spring assembly to be a much more sophisticated build than it actually is. And makes it a much more interesting piece to look at when it's on the car. Since this is just a simple build, I've decided to challenge myself on it and make it a little more interesting by detailing it as much as possible, or as much as I'm capable of doing, to give it the appearance of a much more sophisticated build. And I like the way it's coming out so far. Again, the assembly is very simple. You just install the rear differential, attach, glue both pegs down on each side, and then you'll take the spring assembly and that mounts to the top here. Let me just see if I can set that up for you real quick so you can get an idea of what it looks like. There we go. And as you see, I think it gives it a much more interesting view and appearance than if everything were painted as the kit says, which is the differential and the axles in aluminum and a spring assembly just in black. And we'll take a look at the Daytona I built over 30 years ago, and we look at the rear assembly all in black, and then we compare it to this one. I think you'll agree that, as well as the fuel tank, which we'll get to that in a second, I think you'll agree that the rear suspension assembly is much more interesting to look at with all the detail painting done. Let's take a look at the front suspension. And here you can see again on the two front suspensions how all the details are brought out. And the whole front suspension just comes to life. And it looks, like I said, it looks like it's a much more interesting build than it actually is. Not that it's a bad build, but it's just a very simple build. And if you're an experienced modeler, this car is not really a challenge. It goes together very well so far, and not really a challenge to build. So you have to make your own challenges for it, and that's where all the painting comes in. As I find it more interesting to take a kit that's not great, good but not great, and add and make it great by getting really creative with it. And these kits where you can get really creative and just start going your own way to make it unique is where I get the most enjoyment of model building. I have compared it to an art form, and it is, as this is my interpretation of the car, and I'm doing what I can do to make it as interesting as possible. And and I like it. Now this is the fuel tank. Again, the fuel tank. This was done in with a combination of the Tamiya. No, this was done with the Model Master steel. Again, with a dusting. No, this was the Tamiya. Trying to remember the titanium silver. With a dusting of the Tamiya gold and then the Tamiya bronze. And then, nope, yeah, the Tamiya. I'm sorry, I'm a little confused right now. The Tamiya bronze, Tamiya silver, the Tamiya titanium silver, and titanium gold. A base of titanium gold with a dusting of, a base of titanium silver with a dusting of titanium gold, and then another dusting of bronze to bring out the highlights and add shadows. The only thing left to do is to paint the retraining straps for the tank, and those will be done in the Model Master steel. And then the entire rear suspension area will be finished. Again, this is basically 2 parts for the rear, 1 part for the front, not counting the tires. And with these 3 parts, you have the entire front suspension and rear suspension completed. And the rest is up to you. I'm really enjoying getting this kit even more than the more challenging kits, because I do get a chance to stretch my creative muscles and make it a little more interesting than what it is. Now, according to Monogram, this is a skill level 2, but it only has 78 pieces, so it's a very low parts count kit. And skill level 2, I think, will be pushing it. I think someone just getting into modeling would enjoy this kit as their first glue kit, as it's easy, it's fun, and you can make it as detailed as you want. Now, while I do enjoy kits with a much higher parts count than this, it's still a fun kit to build. And normally a kit like this would take any skilled modeler just, I would say, a day or 2 to finish. Again, like I said, I find the challenge in creating as much as I can visual interest in this kit, and that stretches the build time quite a bit longer, but I think it's worth it. Now, the chassis was black. All I did with the chassis was give it a dull coat to mimic the undercoating they used back in the 70s when this car was built. Which again allows the suspension components, which are in the semi-gloss, to stand out more. Alright, and that is the entire chassis of the Monogram Ferrari Daytona. Basically 4 parts and the 4 wheels. Very, very simple build. I'll give you another close-up look of the rear suspension. You can see the differential just peeks out from underneath there. The springs, the mounting rods for the springs, and the gas tank. This is still only my second kit that I've used this technique of layering these colors to give the metal a distressed appearance or and add shadows, and I'm really liking it. It's something I've learned from watching quite a few YouTube videos. This is the exhaust, which I applied the same technique to, and allows the heat discoloration, as you can see, using the same colors, the same three colors, which I'm really liking that combination of color. I don't think I really need to add any other color to these to give the discolored heat appearance. I mean, the heat discolored appearance to the metal, as I think that replicates the look very well. And that's the full exhaust. And again, why don't we compare it to a stock build, which is my old Daytona kit. And as you can see, I think visually my new build is light years ahead. I'm really liking the look of the distressed and aged metal, and it's a technique I plan on using from here on out. If you got an airbrush, I would recommend just picking up the Tamiya. Here it is, X32, titanium silver, X31, titanium gold, and X33 bronze. And use your airbrush and just play with the effect and see what you get. I'm still learning this technique, as I've seen quite a few more experienced builders use it to an incredible effect. So as I said, I'm still learning it, but I'm liking the results. Alright, now let's take a quick look at the engine. Okay, this is the engine of the Daytona Spyder. And those of you who are automotive savvy will know that this is not a Ferrari engine. This is in fact a small block Chevy V8, which, if you don't know the story of this car, it's really based off of the kit car from the Miami Vice TV series, which was basically a Ferrari that was a Corvette that was dressed up as a Ferrari. Now, this engine, I was again sorely disappointed in the lack of details, and this engine, as far as I'm concerned, it'll be a make or break thing on your paint application. Here I did the block and heads in Chevy engine red. Then I used, again, the same technique of heat discoloration on the manifolds using the steel, Model Master steel, and then the titanium, gold, and bronze. And then I highlighted it all with Tamiya panel line accent color in black. I then painted in all the details in the engine, the timing cover, the water pump, the oil filter assembly, the transmission, which, again, using the same technique with the same colors, it gave me a really nice aged effect on the transmission, highlighting the curves, adding shadows to it. I'm really pleased with the way this transmission came out. Now, this one I didn't use the titanium silver. Oh no, what I did was I sprayed Tamiya, gold, Tamiya silver. It was from a spray can. Tamiya silver, anodized silver. And then over that, I went over it with the Tamiya titanium silver to give me a slightly different color than what I had on the rest of the build. Over that, then I did the bronze and titanium gold highlights, which ages the metal and gives you a worn look. Let's see if we can bring it close here. And then using some Tamiya panel line paint to highlight all of the details. Really just brought the transmission to life. I'm very happy with the way this turned out. And also use the panel line paint to bring out the details in the block. There's not a lot, but the little details you bring out really does give this engine a new life. I then used the Tamiya silver, sprayed lightly over gloss black to give the metallic appearance for the intake, and then added the Tamiya panel line paint to simulate dirt and grime built up over the use of the car. And then took the valve covers, which were chrome, and then I ran the Tamiya panel line paint over it to bring out the highlights in the valve covers, and also to dull down the chrome just a little bit to give it a more realistic appearance, as the chrome was just a little too shiny. And this gives the engine a used look, and the transmission both have a nice used worn look and gives it a much more realistic appearance, in my opinion. So I recommend you can give that technique a try, using your airbrush of layering the colors, misting them on there, highlighting, and if I can get results like this, just being a beginner with this technique, anyone can do a great job with this. So far, this is the build of the Monogram Ferrari Daytona Spyder. A kit which I thought was going to be just a simple in and out kit with low parts count, not a lot of fun, and I'm finding that I'm really enjoying it because I am being a lot more creative with this in trying to make it look as if it is a much higher parts count kit, a much more sophisticated build. Alright, I know that I've dragged this one out a little bit. It's much longer than my usual videos, but I'm very happy with these results, and I just wanted to share that with all you guys who give a crap. Alright, that's going to be the end of the video here, and I guess I will see you guys on the next one.